Lieutenant Commander Kono Koa, leader of Earth Force Amphibious Assault Unit 3, chugged his jungle juice, slammed the bottle on the table, then stuck out his tongue and gave a primal shout at the Denari POWs. He was a huge, meaty Maori, with mystic tattoos distorting his face into a demonic visage. Denari were crab-like aliens, the latest hapless wretches who had something humans wanted. Some of Kono's fellow humans were forming up into irregular lines, shouting, "Haka! Haka! Haka!" Kono strutted up to the front of the lines, faced the troops, stuck his tongue out of a fierce face, thumped his chest, stamped his feet, and roared even louder. The lines of men and a few equally fierce-looking women stamped and roared back. The wave of the beach their compound was located on seemed to echo the savage screams. Kono turned his back to the 24 or so humans standing in line and punched his fist into his other hand over his head. He lowered his arms and reached up to punch his hand again, but this time the lines of humans also punched their fists into their hands as the group roared in unison. The group slapped their chests, thighs, and forearms. They stomped and thudded. They shouted, growled, and roared. Their faces, with wide glaring eyes and tongues protruding, were the image of dark beings from a hell dimension. But the most terrifying part was how these creatures were perfectly in sync with their savage primal display, as they roared to a god of war and destruction. Kamate! Kamate! Kaora! Kaora! Kamate! Kamate! Kaora! Kaora! Tene de Tokanda, Puhuruhuru, Nanene Aitiki Ma, Wakakwiti Tira. Aupa, ne, Kaupa, ne, Aupan, Kaupan, Wititira. Hey! The group stomped forward, with random members giving roars and shouts until they were almost within arm's reach of the Denari captives. A particularly fearsome female stomped forward, slapping her thighs like thunder from the heavens. She shouted a loud hiss, then leaned forward, glaring at the terrified Denari. Her mouth was closed, which emphasized the malevolence and destruction in her eyes. The other females followed her, hissing, then giving the same soul-consuming stare. Surely these females worshipped the Dark Goddess, Mother Death, who had consumed her own children so she could take their power. Some of the prisoners actually hyperventilated and fainted from fear. Kono had the top 3 Denari brought out of the cage. He forced them down to a submissive posture, then said in a voice loud enough for everyone present to hear, "You are prisoners of Earth Force. My tribe does not take prisoners, so you must make yourself useful enough for me to let you live. What do you have to say for yourselves?" The Denari commander looked up. This fearsome human with permanent markings on his face was a nightmare that never could have been imagined. He had even seen this creature giving orders to the females who worshipped Mother Death, but he still had presence of mind to ask, "How are you able to survive the water? You are mammals, not amphibians. You have no fins, tails, webbing, or gills. When your kind fought alongside us, before you betrayed us on Unla Desert Worlds, it was as though your kind must have evolved from the desert. We translated the unit insignias, and they are all desert creatures. How is this possible?" His last word was a choking sob. Kono laughed evilly and answered, "Earth is 70% oceans. The land is our mother, but the water is our father. My tribe learns to swim before we can walk. One of our greatest warriors taught us, know your enemy. We fought alongside you against the Unla so we could know you inside and out. But you never questioned why we will be willing to shed blood for you. Now you do know. It is because when you want Earth to fight your war, we will win that war. We fight for our own glory and power. Our blood is not to be spilled to feed the greed of others." The Denari chittered nervously, making noises sounding like pebbles in a can. Kono paced back and forth in front of the leaders, then announced,
Your only use to me is information. Tell me of your troop deployments, your passcodes, your unit and weapons capabilities, and how we can easily conquer your worlds with as little human life lost as possible. Know this, we are a vengeful species. For every one of ours that you kill, we will kill 10 of yours.
He leaned toward the leader, who would normally be taller than him, but the submissive posture made him slightly shorter.
Talk!
The Denari captain was visibly shaking. I must not! Kono pulled out his pistol. He removed the ammunition clip, removed a round, and waved it in the Denari's faces.
This is not a regular bullet. This is a Hesh bullet. Hesh means high explosive squash head. It is specifically designed to damage personnel wearing armor. When the bullet impacts the armor, instead of cleanly piercing and passing through, the head of the bullet expands, causing the target's armor to conduct kinetic force to a large area of the body under the armor. The armor plates, or an exoskeleton like yours.
Kono tapped a prisoner on his chest plate.
Will take very little damage. However, the soft tissue under the armor, blood vessels, nerves, cartilage, and tendons, will be heavily impacted. It is absolutely excruciating. Tell me what I want to know now, and save yourself the suffering.
Kono put the round back into the clip, put the clip into the gun, then shot at a log. The dry wood practically exploded. The Denari prisoners all began to give high-pitched screams. The 3 officers outside the cage just repeated over and over, We must not! Petty Officer Second Class Mateo Coatli, a small, wiry Mexican, spoke up. Enough. Sir, give them the night to think it over. In the morning, after breakfast, say 0800, that will be el tiempo perfecto to show the cangrechos that we mean business.
Kono growled at him. I'm tired of your insolence. This is your last chance, or else I will show you that I mean business.
The commander stormed off to get himself another bottle, while the Denari leaders were returned to the prisoner cage. In the headquarters tent, Kono was leaned, partially sitting on the edge of his desk. Petty Officer Quatley was sitting in the chair, with his feet crossed up on the desk. A few others were casually hanging out, joking, and calmly discussing the events of the day. Quatley was chuckling and shaking his head. Well, sir, now I know why your people started your battles with hakas. I thought those proprecitos were going to crap themselves. The tall warrior woman, Lieutenant Junior Grade Marama Davis, also a Maori, waved her hand, chuckling. Get this! I did some checking on this Mother Death they were talking about. They think me and the other females are in some sort of matriarchal satanic cult. They are under the impression that we are going to eat them alive. Kono and Quatley rolled their eyes, but she replied, I'm not kidding. This Mother Death is their devil. They really think we might do it.
Kono threw his head back and laughed. Seriously? Looks like Maoris are going to get our reputation for cannibalism back.
Quatley asked, Did that actually happen?
Kono winked at him. We don't do it anymore. Much.
Marama asked Quatley, You're absolutely sure about the plan tomorrow? We can change course. Kono gave him a concerned look also. Quatley waved his hand dismissively. I'm completely certain. I did 3 test dives today. High tide starts at 0700. We get there between 08 and 0830. That will give us time to put on some theatre, so at 1000, el tiempo mío, we'll be good to go. Actually, any time between 0800 and noon will be fine, so if you run a little early or late, está bien. All you have to do is let go when I snap my fingers. My brother and I used to do this twice a day, making money off of tourists, back in Acapulco. It'll be fine. I can't wait to tell my brother. They chuckled, then Kono asked,
Quatley, what the hell are your feet doing on my desk?
As they all snickered, Marama replied, Sir, didn't your mum ever tell you that tables are for glasses, not asses? They laughed again as Quatley pulled his feet down and stood up. Well, I'm going to hit the hay. I think I'll catch you stroll by the cages and mention that Chief has some new recipes she wants to try out. He made a motion with his hand, twirling an imaginary moustache. In the cages, the Denari discussed their situation. Val spoke. These humans will not do what they threaten. Yes, they did betray us, but none of their actions have actually violated galactic laws. All the reports regarding captured Unla show that humans treat docile prisoners humanely. Re'em responded. Those same reports said that humans are desert mammals. They even show training facilities in desert warfare. They are land-based creatures, but they swim with ease. We should have been safe in the water, but obviously weren't. Val rubbed his forelegs together thoughtfully. Perhaps these humans have been altered. Lu'ul chimed in. Such successful alterations take time. It is most likely that they did adapt if their world really has that much water. Humans are known for highly unpredictable tactics in all climates and terrains. Earth is a Class 10 death world. If they have multiple climates, that would explain a lot. Particularly, it would explain why those who personally know humans advise so strongly against asking for their assistance with the Unla. The Denari kept discussing the situation late into the night, voting over and over about whether or not to cooperate. A couple hours before sunrise, they finally agreed that they would not cooperate. The next morning, several of the prisoners were marched out up to a cliff. Kono, Marama, and Quatli stood near the edge. Several Denari, including the leader Val, were standing close by under heavy guard. Kono paced back and forth in front of the prisoners.
You have had the night to think of your options. You will tell me what I want to know. I will not waste my time babysitting prisoners that are of no use to me. You have two choices. Answer questions and live, or... He grabbed a rock and flung it over the cliff edge. Pray that your gods teach you to fly.
Clicking noises could be heard from Denari trembling in their exoskeletons. Kono walked back and forth, shouting questions. The Denari shivered, did something like weeping, but refused to answer any questions. Marama pulled out a knife, getting dangerously close to where the Denari could actually feel her breath. She rubbed the blade of the knife over exposed Denari facial skin, then licked it. Her eyes had the same crazed look as the night before. Before we start tossing them off the cliff, let's see what they taste like. A few of the prisoners gave choking sobs. At 0950, Quadley's patience was wearing thin. Look, sir, these heavy-handed tactics might have gotten you promoted, but we need to wait for professional interrogators. You are wasting everyone's time with all this strutting and preening. Kono snarled and grabbed Quatley's collar and dragged him to the cliff edge. Kono held the back of the collar, with Quatley leaned far over the edge, only Kono's grip saving him from falling.
Kono yelled, I have had enough of your disrespect. If one more word comes out of your mouth, I will end you.
Quatley paused a few seconds, then shouted back, You wouldn't dare! And snapped his fingers. Kono released his grip. Humans and Denari rushed to the cliff edge as Quatley screamed all the way down, then hit the water. The guards herded the prisoners back. Kono looked around. Who's next? The Denari panicked and all began talking. They told everything. They answered all questions, willingly repeating answers and going into detail as needed. Recording devices were set up so each prisoner's deposition was recorded and could be catalogued and cross-referenced for accuracy. Later, the Denari were in the dining tent taking a meal when Quadley walked in. A few of the humans called to him. He waved and laughed. The Denari were in stunned silence. Coco and Marama were dining with Val and waved him over. Val was shocked. I saw you perish! Quadley chuckled. My family had been cliff divers for hundreds of years. I was making jumps like that as a boy. Before I joined Amphibian Assault Force, I made my living diving cliffs twice that high. Val was desolate. Then you tricked us. We gave up for nothing. Marama replied, Not necessarily. We don't kill unless we need to, but if we need to, we won't hesitate. Since your people are providing the information we need and are cooperating, you are safe. Val's 6 eye stalks seemed to droop. We thought that by enlisting humans to help us, we would finally defeat the Unla. Instead, we are now defeated.
Kerner replied, Too bad no one warned you about getting humans involved.
Val sighed. Actually, some Denari who knew humans did try to warn the rest of us.
Quatley quipped, You should have listened.